Okay. Today, I'm going to start from Vayisave David on Samacham Bay 60b. Towards the bottom, but still a ways. Maybe it's close to 15 lines from the bottom. 14 lines. Shalom, say hello to your father.
Hey, Shalom. Good morning. Good to see you.
Okay. Yeah, so it says, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. That's less of a learning we should have at the base of English. Immediately. The pasuk says, "Vayisave David, Vayomer, Miyashkeni Mayim Mibar Beislechem Asher Bashar, V'yifku Shleish Sagibar Machna Plishtim, Vayishavu Mayim Mibar Beislechem Asher Bashar V'Gomer." That's a pasuk that says that David said, "Who can serve us some water from the well in Beis Lechem, that's by the gate?" And three strong men broke through the Plishtim ranks, and they got water from the well that was in Beis Lechem. It was by the gate. Now, the Gemara, this could be just talking about water, that he wanted water and he brought water, and then it says he doesn't drink the water. But the Gemara understands over here the fact that he says Asher Bashar, that's by the gate, which is usually an expression which is used for a court, which was always at the gates of the city. So it sounds like he's actually asking a question from the Sanhedrin. Gemara says, "Maikami Baile." What was his question that he was asking? It's written figuratively, and he's really talking about that there was some question that he had. So Amar Rava, Amar Rav Nachman. Rava says in the name of Rav Nachman, "Taman be'esh kami baile." He's asking about taman. Something is concealed inside a haystack, and it gets burnt. Ik Rabbi Yehuda, ik Rabbanan. David HaMelech was asking, "Do we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda or like the Rabbanan?" I know it was 1,000 years earlier, but his question was, do we follow that logic or not? That we say taman. In other words, what do we learn from the Oy Hasada, or that machlekes we had yesterday? And they answered whatever they answered. It's not telling us what they answered. Rav Huna says, "Gedishim desairim the Yisrael havu." There was a pile of barley, like what do you call it? A pile of grain. Well, it depends. Rabbi Yehuda versus Rabbanan just means the sages that argued on Rabbi Yehuda, which we don't have exactly their names, but yeah. So it was a stack of barley. Davim metamri plishtimbu, and the plishtim were hiding inside it. But kami boile, and his question was, are you allowed to save yourself by destroying your friend's property? He's at war. This is an interesting question. Are you allowed to burn the haystack to get the plishtim? It's not your haystack. Well, they said, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to save yourself with your friend's property. You're asking a good question. But you're a king, and a king is allowed to break through and do whatever he wants. No one can protest. Yonatan is asking, but it's pekuach nefesh. Whoever heard of such a thing? That if you can basically kill the guy to save your own life, but I can't burn his haystack to save the... He's saying not.
They don't have to pay for them because they're hiding. Because
you don't pay anyway for the death of people. Is a battle. So yeah, there's a big discussion about this, and there's a big discussion about saving yourself by destroying someone else's money. It's problematic. There's a discussion. It's problematic philosophically, and it's problematic also this halachic discussion. So it doesn't seem to fit with other things. Okay, Rabbanan v'tema Rabba bar Mari Amru Chuvas Chasam Sefer that discusses this.
David was aware of
The three cardinal sins. This is not one of them, right? They're only supposed to give up your life. I'm sorry?
He's going to be saved anyway. It's just how he's going to be saved.
Yes, but the quote that the sages tell him that a person's not allowed to save his own life with his friend's property. That's a little surprising.
I'm saying it's not really pikuach nefesh. It's not like he had this chus to be saved anyway. It's just how he's going to be saved.
Yeah, but I understand. But what they're telling him though seems to be relevant in other situations. Now Tosfos says, if he saved himself because of pikuach nefesh, would he have to pay for it, or is it automatically exempt?
It says that David was permitted to burn them. He just had to question whether he had to pay for them or not.
Okay. Next, Rabbanan Ritema Rabba Bamari Amru. The Rabbanan, this is the third answer, right? We had Rav Amar Rav Nachman that says his question was about Taman. We have Rav Huna that says his question about saving himself with someone else's property. And Rabba Bar Mari, or the Rabbanan, they say Gedishim Desayim Di Yisrael Havu. There was a pile of barley. Gedishim Da Adashim De Plishtim, and then there was these lentils that's for the Plishtim. Kami Bailu, and his question was, Mal Little Gedishim Shel Sayrim Di Yisrael Litin Lefnei Behemtai. Is he allowed to take the Jewish person's property? Almanas L'Shal Gedishim Shel Adashim De Plishtim, and he's going to pay it back with the lentils from the Plishtim. Plishtim, of course, he's at war with, so he's going to take it as spoils, and then he's just going to give it. One of the commentaries say that the question over here also has to do with the fact that he doesn't have it yet. He was going to go get it, and he was taking it now. He's going to pay it back with the. Yeah, no, but he doesn't. The animals don't eat. The animals don't eat the lentils. The animals eat the barley. So he's going to pay back the barley with lentils, which he doesn't have yet. Anyway, whatever. Shalchalei, they said, Chaval Russia, Chaval Yashiv Russia Gazeli Yishalim. That yes, it means like a destroyer returns and the wicked pays back the Gazela. No, it's basically you're stealing and you're going to pay back, but that's considered wicked. Alf Pisha Gazela Mishalim, even though he pays for the what he stole, but Russia is still considered wicked. Avalata Melachata, but you're a king. You're allowed to do whatever you want and no one can protest. Bishlam, so there's like rules for the king which are different. I think it says like Elam Mishpatim Mashatosim Lefneim, that Moshe Rabbeinu was a melech, but when he's giving them the halachas, he has to give them the halachas that are relevant to the people, not to the king. The king gets away with a lot of things. So Bishlam Elamanda Malach Lufe, if it's good according to the opinion that says that it was going to exchange a barley pile for a lentil pile. There's a discrepancy in the verses. You see, a lot of the stories in the Nach are repeated in Chronicles, in Divrei Hayamim. But sometimes there's like a few words that are different here and there. So in Shmuel, it says that it was Adashim. Shmuel, it says Adashim. And in Divrei Hayamim, it says, I think so, it says it was Sa'irim. So it says that there was a field that was filled with lentils. And there was another pasuk that says filled with barley. And the explanation is that he was going to exchange the barley for the lentils. But if he's just going, this question was just about burning the barley to kill the Plishtim. Why do we need this discrepancy in the verses? Gemara answers that there were two stacks of grain. One was barley, one was lentils, and the Plishtim are hiding in both. Okay, we answered the question. It's good according to the one that says that it was going to destroy the barley, that he actually saved it. He did not destroy it. He did not burn it because he didn't want to be he didn't want to take on that leniency that the king gets. He wanted to keep the actual law. But if it was coming to exchange it, what does it mean that he saved it? Could have exchanged it as well. So the Gemara says, he didn't want to do the exchange, which means he saved it. Okay, those two that we said that it was either an exchange or it was destroying. Okay, so that's where we have the two verses of Adashim, which was the exchange, or he saved it from, or they were both in hiding. Both had Plishtim hiding in it. Alamanda Matam Beish, top of page 61. But according to the opinion that says that his question was, do we go like Rabbi Yehuda, do we go like the Rabbanan? My Baile Krai. What do we need these two verses for? Amalach Taman v'chada mehanach kami Baile. According to the opinion that his question was, do we pass like Rabbi Yehuda that says that anything that's inside the haystack that gets burnt, you're obligated to pay, or do we pass like the Rabbanan? That's his question. I don't need two verses for this. Gemara says, yeah, you're right. There were actually two questions according to that opinion. One was, what's the halacha by Taman? And one was, what about the saving yourself with someone else's money? Or maybe there was the other question of exchanging lentils for barley if someone is in it. So he actually had two questions in order to resolve the tipsuk. Yeah. It's good according to the opinion that says one of these two things. It says that David doesn't want to drink the water. It was all in code over here. It said that he was asking for water. It means he doesn't want to do it. So why not? He doesn't want to get involved in anything that's prohibited. But if he just had a halachic shaila, halachic question, do we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Do we paskin like the Rabbanan? About, I didn't mention that it turned out that there was an actual case where David's man, had actually burnt a field of or a haystack of a pile of grain of a Jew, and inside it were vessels that belonged to the Jew, utensils that belonged to the Jew. The question was, did he have to pay for it? So, if it was just a shaila, do I have to pay? Do I not have to pay? What does it mean he doesn't want to drink the water? So it says, it's just a teaching. So what does it mean he doesn't want to drink? Gemara says, that he didn't want to give over the halacha in the name of those people that went to ask the question. Why not? Omar, he said, I've accepted from the court of Shmuel. Shmuel was David's teacher. Anyone that risks his life for Torah, we can't say over his name. We can't say over halachas in his name. Problematic. Usually you would expect it to say exactly the opposite. But it says, now it says that he poured it for Hashem. According to those two opinions, that says Mishum David L'Shem Shemayim, because he didn't want to take on himself any leniencies. We understand that he did it just for Hashem. Over here it says he poured the water for Hashem. But what does it mean if he was just a halachic question? What does it mean that he didn't want the water? He just poured it for Hashem. What does it mean? It was just a question. He got an answer. So it's the Gemara that he just was only said over, not in the name of the people that went to get the answer. He said it over just in the name of as a teaching. He gave it to Hashem, like it's just a common, without anyone specific. Yeah. Yeah, but that Rabbi Akiva didn't give his life at the time that he was teaching that Torah. So in other words, the teachings of the Torah that were learned when the person's life was at risk, so that we don't say over in his name. Yeah, apparently I think the Maral says that Torah is considered life and this was considered death, so that's not considered the teachings that we give over. Anyway, over Geder Shugvaya Dalaramas. We're talking about a fire. Yeah, the fun's over. The back to halacha. Back to no, Daf Yomi is not halacha share. Back to regular Gemara. The fire jumped over a fence, which is high 4 amos. No, it's not talking about that the fence is high 4 amos. It's talking about that the fence is higher than the fire 4 amos. No, it doesn't mean the top of the flames. It means it's higher than the wood that the flame is. And in other words, it's basically the fire is doing acrobatics to burn the neighbor's property. Or jumps across the street, 16 amos wide. We're going to learn soon. Or it goes over a river. So then he's going to be exempt because the person that lit the fire did not have to assume that it's going to go so far. He lit the fire in his thing, like he made a barbecue. Doesn't have to assume his neighbor's property is going to, and then he has to pay for it. But whatever happened after that was not unavoidable circumstances. The Gemara says, "Va'atanya," but we have a brisa. If it goes over a fence that's 4 amos, he's chayev. You're telling me that if the fence is 4 amos, he's pater. I have a brisa that says chayev. Rav Papa says, Tana didan kachashim malmayla lamata. You see, we're just getting it in, we're just getting the notes of the teaching. But what was the actual teaching? The way it was said originally went like this. He was started from on top. He says, Sheish amos, if the wall is 6 amos, he's pater. Then he says, Chamish amos, if it's 5 amos, he's pater. Ad arba amos, until 4 amos, he's pater. So all the way down, from top to bottom, he's pater, including 4 amos. Ad bad b'chal. Tanabra, but the brisa, he was working the other way. He started to, if the wall is 2 amos, he says it's chayev. Shalish amos, 3 amos is chayev. Ad arba amos is chayev. Until 4 amos is going to be chayev, but not including 4 amos. So the reason why it says 4 amos is chayev, it means up to 4 amos. The reason why it says 4 amos is pater, it means down to 4 amos is all pater. Amar Rava. Rava says, Dalit amos shamra de pater. When we said that you're pater, I feel a mistake kaitzim. Even if the adjacent field is thorns, which is very easy to catch on fire, you can probably catch on fire even like through the wall, probably if it's hot enough. So nevertheless, it's still exempt. Amar of Papa, but that's only if from the edge of the thorns up is going to be 4 amos. Otherwise, if it's high, it's going to leap over and catch it. So Amar Rav. Okay, now Rav comes in and says, Leishanu, when did we say that you're pater? When you have walls and this and that, or going over rivers and across streets. There's different types of fires. But this type of fire, like it's a different type of clouds. This is a different type of fire. This fire is going straight up. It's a fire that goes up. So then we don't think that it's going to jump over a wall. But if it's a fire that's crouching down, like it's bending over, sometimes you see the flame is like rushing sideways. That probably has to do with the wind or something else. I don't know. Even if it travels 100 amos, it's going to be chayev, like across the street or something. Shmuel says it's probably wood along the way, which makes it chayev. Shmuel Amar Masnisin ben Chfefes. Shmuel says no. Our Mishnah is talking about his pater even when it is the type of fire that's like crouching down. Aval b'kelachas, a fire that's standing straight up. I feel a kolshu pater, even a small. I know kolshu means a small wall or a small distance. Maybe both. He would be pater. So Shmuel has a lenient view about these fires. If it's a type of fire that doesn't bend, so then he should be pater for much less than what the Mishnah said. Tani Kava say the Rav. There's a brisa that supports Rav. Amedvar mamurim. Yeah, Tosfos says it's talking about the wall. Okay. Amedvar mamurim. When do we say that if it goes over a street that you're going to be pater? That's b'kailachas. That's talking about if the fire is going straight up. But if it's crouching down the fire and there's wood that's common along the way, I feel ad meya mil is going to be chayiv. Even 100 mil is going to be chayiv.
Excuse me. So are these terms referring to the way the wind is blowing?
Yeah, it's not saying that directly. It's saying the type of fire that it is. Rashi says that it has to do with the wind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fire that's crouching.
No, there's different interpretations here. But one interpretation is that it's traveling like on the ground, like with the little twigs spreading along the ground. Another interpretation is that it's actually a big flame, and the wind is pushing the flame to bend over. Rashi has two versions there. Over a nar, if it goes over a river, a shlulis is like a channel. What does it say? How does it translate that? A channel of some sort. Shehim rechavim chesv amas, that it's 8 amas wide, then it's going to be pater. And the difference between the street versus the channel is that the water, or the coolness of the water, is going to make it, or because it's deep, is going to make that difference. It's regular street is 16 amas, but if there's water in the middle, it's only 8 amas. That would already be exempt. Okay. Derech harabim, if it goes over a street. Mantana, who's the author of this? Amarava. Rabbi says Rabbi Eliezer. It's Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanan. It's taught in the following Mishnah, which when we turn the page, we'll see it. Rabbi Eliezer Meshesh Riyama Kederech Rishus Rabim is pater. That if it goes over a street that's 16 amos, it's going to be exempt. That's what we're going to learn in a moment. So we'll see that. Okay. Or if it goes over a river, Rav Amar Nar Mamish. Rav says it's actually a river. Does it translate Nar as a river in your Gemara? River. Shmuel Amar Arisa Didiloi. How does it translate that? A channel?
Water channel.
Irrigation ditch or a water channel. Okay. So Shmuel says that it could be even smaller than what Rav is saying. He'd be exempt even. So Shmuel has these lenient opinions here. According to Rav, that says it has to be an actual river. But even though Rav was stricter over there about the size of the river, but he's also has one leniency that it doesn't need to have water in it, because it could be a dry river, but just the fact that it's like this deep ditch, the river basin, river something, river bed.
It's a river.
Bed. So.
Irrigation channel says that it's 1 amma wide and 1 amma deep.
Right.
And then the river.
How deep is the river?
8 ammas wide.
8 ammas wide. How deep is it? Okay. So the river, even though it doesn't have water, but if it's the water channel, so Maya in, then there's only if there's water there. It said it's only 1 amma by an amma. But if it doesn't have water, then that's not going to be an exemption. Following, divide a field regarding pay. You have to leave the corner of your field for the poor. So do you have to leave 2 corners of these 2 fields, or is it all considered 1 field? So there's things in the middle that are.
Well, you have 4 corners.
You have 4 corners to the field. But let's say there's a division in the field because there's a little water channel that's going through it. Now you have to leave 2 corners. So the following, divide a field that you have to not leave 2 corners. Hanachal, which is a stream of some sort. Shlulis, which is that water channel that we said before. Derech hayachid v'derech harabim, a private street or a public street. Derech hayachid is a 4 amma path, and the derech harabim is a 16 amma path. My shlulis, what is this water channel that you're telling me? I'm Rav Yehuda Shmuel, makom shmeigasham sheilim sham. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel that it's a place where the waters of the rainwaters gather. Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi says name of Rabbi Yochanan. Amas hamayim. It's a stream of water. Shemachalekes shalal lagapeh. It's an irrigation channel that it distributes spoils, means fruits, to the banks of the river, which means it causes everything to grow. So it's an irrigation channel. The one that says, which was Rav Yehuda Shmuel, says that it's because the rainwater gathers and that's dividing for Peah. So Kolshkein Amasamayim, then for sure, if it's a river channel, doesn't say exactly why for sure. I guess because it's always there, or maybe it's larger. Mandamar Amasamayim, one that says that it's the irrigation channel. But if it's just where rainwaters gather, that would not divide a field. Why? Dahanu, because those Bagni Da'ara Mikru, they're just called ditches in the land. It's not called a separation in the field. How do they translate Bagni?
Balls of the land.
Bowls of the land. Bowls. Yeah, it means puddles. Pools. Okay.
That always come up a number of times. Why do we? Why do we not hold people liable for their stuff when it was? Let's call it out of the ordinary. I built a wall 4 foot high and they're going to do it. Okay, so still yours. If it was a windy day, you should have built a fire. Or as soon as you saw the wind was raging, you should have put out the fire. Why are people not held liable when it's slightly out of slightly above normal? It's called that. They had a 16-foot road. Okay, so you saw things were blowing. You should have stopped. You should have put out the fire. Like today in American society, you could never say, "Oh, it's a 16-foot road." Sorry, I didn't think about it.
No. What happened in Chicago? That big fire. What happened? Would the person be obligated to pay for the whole city?
Well, we haven't touched China responsible for the virus, so I don't know if the answer.
No, I think there was like a certain amount that a person would be responsible. After that, I think you're not responsible.
The only one I remember is like California, some kids with fireworks, they threw it into the forest, and I don't know how many, like hundreds or thousands of acres caught fire.
They were responsible.
Yeah.
You see, if you light someone's thing, you see, there's a difference between if you go and damage someone, you go into their property and you light something on fire. There's a difference between that. We're going to see later in the Gemara. And if you lit a fire in your own property and something happened and it was like that was out of the ordinary, and it's a different side. I wasn't intention to do damage. I was just making a barbecue.
Yeah, but the flip side, like I say, we have 20-mile-an-hour winds all the time. You should, 4 feet would have been under normal circumstances. But you know that we had strong wind. You had to go to.
Oh, so if that would be the case, then that would actually be higher. But if it would be a wind that would not be, then it would be exempt.
Or I could say, like I said before, yeah, you're right. 4 feet is normally good. But you saw today was windy. You saw that your wife was approaching. You should have put out the fire. Right.
Then he would actually be chayav, because if that would be the scenario we're talking about, where in normal cases this would not have extended. Yeah.
So what's he going to claim as his defense? My house just got burned.
What he's going to claim is I followed all the code, the permits.
My field was burned down.
I know, but no, look, yeah, they give you building permits, what you're allowed to do, and they give you there's probably also fire permits in certain areas. I don't know exactly for what, but if you have to do this, you follow all the protocol, and then you're going to be you're not liable because you did it properly. He's just going to claim I did everything that it said on that list when I got the permit.
I think a good example is like insurances. Like if you have, let's say, a kitchen, a commercial kitchen, and you don't have the proper extinguishing thing,
right,
and the kitchen catches fire, the insurance is like, I'm not going to pay you. You didn't have it properly set up.
Exactly.
It gives a whole example, like, depending on number one, because of the word, how they come up.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same thing. Pools and both. Okay, hamadlik b'teich shalai. If someone lights a fire in his own field, ad kama tavra ad leika, and how far does he have to protect it, that the fire would not, that he can be safe, that the fire won't spread? How much area does he have to leave around it clear so that he's following the protocol? Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah Aimer, you have to view it as if he's in the center of a base court. Now, which means that it's not a full base court, it's half a base court to each side, because he's in the center. How much is a base court? I don't remember. A saw was, it's far, it's 50. This is going to be a big area. A saw was 50 amas by 50 amas. Base court is 30 saw. So, what is that, 3,000 amas? That's a huge, yeah.
274 by 274.
274. 274. Okay. All right. Like 18 inches. I don't know. So that was the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Yeah.
Just a point. I just looked up with the fire jumping. It says flaming brands and embers can travel as far as 5 miles ahead of the active front of a wildfire.
5 miles.
5 miles and then ignite, go on a roof or someone's.
What's it called? Flaming what?
Just as flaming brands and embers can travel.
Uh-huh.
It says 60% of wildland urban interface home ignitions are from red snow landing on flammable roofs or other flammable objects, which in turn ignites the home. I'm saying we're thinking it's a few feet. It can mamish go miles.
Right. So
It's almost like 4 acres.
yeah. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer says, 16 amas, like we learned in the last Mishnah. 16 amas. You have another cookie there. Rabbi Akiva says 50 amas. Akiva says 50 amas. Reb Shimon is the youngest of the group. He says that the person has to pay, the one that lit the fire has to pay. It doesn't matter. It looks like however big the fire is. Now, at this point, we think what it means is that you're always going to be chayav. But we're going to say soon that that's not necessarily the case. Let's take a look. The Gemara asks, Reb Shimon has no protocols of how a person can make a fire. You're always going to be chayav. But Tanan, how could that be? We have a Mishnah in Baba Basra. It says, Lo yamid adam taner b'toich habayis. A person should not put an oven in his house. Unless he has a distance to the roof of 4 amas. Can't put an oven there because it could catch the roof on fire. It has to have a 4 amma distance. It has to have a hood. Right? Okay. Then it says, let's say you want to have an oven in the 2nd floor. You have to have a insulation on the floor of 3 tvachim. Maziv is just like a type of plaster or tar that they would put on the roof of the floor. Ubekira, but if it's a smaller type of oven, then you only need a maziv of a tefach. Bim hizik, if it causes damage. Mashali masha hizik, you have to pay for the damage. We'll see what that means in a moment. Shimon says no. If it causes the damage, then you're going to be exempt. Not if it causes damage, you're going to be chayiv. The reason why we have these zoning, permit codes and all of that is to say that if you did it properly, you should be exempt. The first opinion looks like if you did it properly, you're still going to be chayiv if it causes damage. They're just 2 rules. First rule is how to build it. Second rule is that you're going to have to pay if it causes damage, even if you did it right. Reb Shimon says, no, if you did it right, you're exempt. The question is, why does Reb Shimon say, which looks like you're always going to be chayiv no matter what? It all goes according to how big the fire is. We can't give you a measurement of how far a distance you have to build. Depends what size fire you build. Build a huge fire, even if you say that it's 16 amas, 50 amas, space core, all of that, but in a huge fire, that's not going to make a difference. It depends on how big the fire is. I'm Rav Yosef, I'm Rav Yehuda, I'm Shmuel, halacha Reb Shimon. They say the halacha is like Reb Shimon. V'chein I'm Rav Nachman, I'm Shmuel, halacha Reb Shimon. It's Rav Yosef and Rav Nachman, and they say the halacha is like Reb Shimon. Okay, basically all in the name of Shmuel. Okay, Masnisin, then we have a new Mishnah. Someone lights a haystack. It's not a haystack, it's a granary, pile of grain, and in the pile of grain are utensils, and they burnt together with the grain pile. Well, Rabbi Yehuda, I remember Shalom Hashem B'Seicha. Rabbi Yehuda, we learned before, he holds that you have to pay on Tamun, even though it's concealed. But we thought we had an exemption for that. Rabbi Yehuda says no. The Chum say you only have to pay for the grain, the wheat, or the barley.
The professor would say that he has to pay like Snida's thumb because the kasha decay. Right? That's you would say that.
Someone told me actually he had a fire. He lived in Muncie, whatever, but he had a fire. Everyone was safe. He said, but it was the best thing that happened to him. He was a hoarder. He couldn't get rid of his junk. So the fire came. He said it was the best thing. It's like everything was. He could start fresh. He got a nice, clean apartment, and this obviously insurance. Okay, so let's say this. We've quoted this Mishnah many times. If there was a goat that was tied to the haystack, the grain stack, and there was a slave that was next to it, and they got burnt with it. So he's chayav, he has to pay for the goat. He doesn't have to pay for the slave. The slave was supposed to run away. That the main point over here is that you don't say kamle b'derabmine. We don't say that since he's chayav misa, he shouldn't have to pay for everything else. Now, and also
you don't get the
smaller din. We don't say that because he's exempt from not paying. He's exempt from punishment for the slave because it's all the slave's fault. The slave wasn't tied. They should go away from the fire. If the slave was tied and then the goat was close to it, then some say it means, or the goat was tied to it, and it got burnt with it, potter, then he's going to be exempt. And the reason is, he's going to be exempt probably because of kamle b'derabmine, because he gets the higher punishment. Now, even if he doesn't get the higher punishment because he wasn't warned or whatever when he burnt, but nevertheless, any case that has associated with it capital punishment, you don't get the lesser punishments. Even if practically you don't get it, you still don't get the lesser punishment. Okay, what about the goat? Why is he exempt on the goat? Could be because the goat was supposed to run away, or because of kamle b'derabmine. Like we said, he's exempt on the lesser punishment. There's two versions in the Rashi. Because okay, the sages agreed to Rabbi Yehuda. They admit to Rabbi Yehuda, if someone lights a house, that you have to pay for everything that's inside. In the haystack, in the grain stack, you don't have to pay for what's inside because what do people put inside that? I don't know. But in a house, you have to pay for all the what's it called? There's like an insurance for what's inside the house. Besides for the house is also it's like the property insurance. You have to pay for all the property, all the personality. What is it? The content, all the content. Because people do put things in the house and they would have to pay for the damage that he caused. Okay. Rav Kana says, Machlokes. The Machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan, we didn't mention this before, but the Machlokes, maybe we did, whatever. The Machlokes is, B'madlik b'toich shaloi, b'hol chavachla b'toich shal chaverei. Talking about he lit a fire in his property, and then the fire went and burnt his neighbor's property, which was, he didn't want that to happen. But Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev and Iski Taman Beish, Rabbi Yehuda says they have to pay for what was hidden inside the haystack, inside the grain stack. But Rabbanan say you don't have to pay for anything that was hidden, you only have to pay for what's exposed. But if you went to your friend's property and you lit his haystack on fire, and inside it were utensils, everyone says you have to pay because you did that biyadayim, you did that with directly, you have to pay for whatever's in it. It's only the exemption of when you lit it in your own property, that's the exemption of Taman. Amalei Rava. Rava says, 1 second. Tells to Rav Kana. So why in the Mishnah did it say, in place of stating in the Mishnah, that the Chacham agreed to Rabbi Yehuda, they have to pay for everything that's in the house. If someone lights a house, because people do put items in the house. If you wanted to tell me a case where the Chachamim say that you're chayav to pay for what's hidden, why didn't you just say this case that your Rav Kana said? Why don't you divide this case and say it's in two parts? When do we say that you don't have to pay for what's hidden in the haystack, in the grain stack? If it's spread to his neighbor's property. But if he lights in his friend's property, then everyone says he has to pay. Even the Chacham would agree. So why do you have to jump to a case of lighting in a house to say that the Chacham say you're chayav you should say, even in a haystack, the Chacham would say you're chayiv if you lit it in your friend's property. Rather, Rava says not like Rav Kana. Rava says that they're arguing about both. If you light it in your own property and if you light it in your neighbor's property, but nevertheless, there still is a distinction between the two. If he lights it in his own property and spreads to his neighbor's property, the Rabbi Yehuda says that you have to pay for things that were concealed as well, because even in a fire. Rabbanan say you don't have to pay for a fire for things that were concealed when you lit it in your own property and it spread. But they also argue if you went directly to your friend's property and you lit it over there. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to pay for everything, even if there was a purse that was hidden in the haystack. Rabbanan Savi, the Rabbanan hold kalim shedarkan lahatmin megadish, utensils that are common to put inside the grain. That would be probably like the grain utensils, maybe the rake or whatever it was. Here it says kagain murigan uklei bakar. Murigan is something that was used in the threshing thing. I don't know what exactly it was. What does it have a name for it? Threshing tools. Uklei bakar are things that were used for the animals that would do the threshing, that would harness them or whatever. But things that are not supposed to be in the haystack, that he doesn't have to pay, even though he lit it in his neighbor's property. So even though there are abundant say that if you do light it directly, you go to the haystack and you light it on fire, you have to pay for things that are hidden, but that's only things that are that would normally be in there, not other things. Remember the story? This guy rents a room in Meron for Lag Baimer, and he goes on a trip to Tzfas, whatever. They had forgotten to close the freezer, and when they came back, the house stunk. There was apparently a chicken that was in the freezer, and so they took it, they wrapped it in a bag, and just threw it out because
go ahead alive. You mean?
There was there was a frozen chicken that was meant for cooking that was in the freezer. Anyway, they left the room. Everything was nice. The owner calls him up afterwards, screaming, "You're a thief! You're the gun of the." What are you talking about? He said, in that chicken they had hidden their savings. There was $10,000 hidden in the cavity in the chicken, and they kept it in the freezer. And no one should see it. And they threw it out. And then I went to the Rav, so they have to pay. Anyway, it's relevant to this stuff.
When we first moved here, we needed some money to pay for some what we wanted. We approached some guy and said, "Can you lend us $2-story, $750?" He said, "No problem." He took us to his home, opened up his freezer, he took out $750 from his freezer. The whole bank was in his freezer.
Or it wasn't in the chicken.
Did I tell you?
Cold cash, right?
Cold cash. Did I tell you?
Paid him back.
I had a neighbor. I lived in Crown Heights for a year. Rabbi Marlowe's Alav Shalom's building, the 7 Balfour Place, was he had passed away right then, that year. Anyway, right next door to me was this lady that was a collector. She sat outside the ice cream shop, and she would on a chair she would collect money. Anyway, at some point, I don't know, burglars came. Anyway, she asked me to come help her in her apartment. There was no furniture, just cardboard boxes. That's how she lived. But she said, check if the money is in the oven. I went to the oven. She had never used the oven. The oven was not even connected. There was an oven. There were wads of bills, with rubber bands around it in the oven, like piled in the oven. Anyway, okay. So that's what's going on over here.
What's your job?
I think she just wanted me to move some boxes to help her get through because they messed up her place or something. Taner Rabbanan, stored in a brayso. If someone lit this grain on fire, and inside there were these utensils, and they burnt. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to pay everything that was inside. You only have to pay because obviously he lit it in his own field. It looks like he's lighting the Gadish directly. I thought the Chachamim would say that you have to pay for the kalim that are in it. Maybe it means that the kalim were not kalim that were meant to be in a Gadish. You only have to pay for the grain, wheat, or the barley. What do you do about that space? There's a hollow space inside. It's not hollow, it's filled with the utensils. Well, you have to pay as if it was grain. Okay. Oh, very good. The Brisa continues. That's only if you lit it in your own property and it went to the friend's property. But if you lit it in your friend's property, maybe. You have to pay everything that's in it. Now, Rava would say that you only have to pay for the utensils that are meant to be in it, and Rav Kana would say you have to pay for everything that's in it. So they'll each explain it properly. And Rabbi Yehuda agrees to the Chachamim. If someone lends an area to his friend that you can put your grain in my property. So now, Gadish, Lahagdish, Gadish, Vihigdish Vihitmin. I'm sorry?
Okay.
Yeah, Lahagdish Gadish to pile up grain. Vihigdish Vihitmin. And he ended up piling up, and he also put things inside. He hid things inside. Well, that wasn't what the guy accepted. That if a fire happens, he only has to pay for what he gave him permission to put there, not for things that he did not give him permission to put there. He told him he can pile up grain, wheat, but instead he put up he did barley. He told him that you could put in barley, but instead he did wheat. What he did was he put wheat there, but he covered it with barley. Makes it look like what's under it is also barley. Or the opposite. Or he put in barley and he covered it with wheat. You only have to pay for the barley. Why? Because he only had permission for barley. Or that's the only thing that got burnt was barley. Even if you had permission for wheat, but you didn't destroy wheat, you only destroyed barley. Or if you had permission for barley and destroyed wheat, but you only have to pay for what you had permission for. Amar Rava. Rava says, someone gives a gold coin to a woman. He says, be careful, it's silver. He didn't tell her that it was gold. He said, it's silver, be careful. Izikate, she damaged it. Mishalemes dinar zav, she has to, like she threw it into the river or something. She has to pay him a whole dinar. Mishum Darmala, because he says to her, what did I have to you that you damaged it? Why do you throw it away? Pashaba, let's say she didn't directly damage it. She just was negligent. She forgot to watch it. She left it somewhere. Mishalemes kesef, she only has to pay silver. Because the Amrale, she says to him, the Tirusa the Kaspa Kabili Alai, I only accepted on myself to guard a silver coin. The Tirusa the Dava, like Kabili Alai, I didn't damage it directly. I was just negligent. So then she only has to pay. She only has to pay that. Maybe over here, that chicken story could come in. They compare it to some other. Oh, amazing! Thank you so much. Yeah, beautiful.
I hope you enjoyed the voyage.
Beautiful.
Like in French, say bon voyage.
The journey. Okay.
So something that was silver got damaged, but she has to pay in gold. What's that all about?
No, it was gold, and she was told that it's silver.
No, it said she had to repay with a dinar zahav.
Yeah, because it was actually gold. The guy that gave it to her said it's silver. And yeah, why does it have to be a woman? I don't know. It could be anyone. Maybe it's a woman because maybe they don't know the difference between gold and silver, the coins or the thing. Right, where it looks the same.
Average Joe with them.
Right. Amalei.
Like gold.
Let me just finish this Gemara and then we'll stop. Amalei Rav Mordechai le Ravashi. Rav Mordechai says to Ravashi, Atun. He says, you that just made this distinction about paying for the gold and for the silver, b'derava masnisole. You learned it from Rava. Anan, but us, we masnisa pshitlan. We learned it from a brisa, and it was very obvious from the brisa. The brisa we quoted already. Chitin v'chifin b'sayin. If it was wheat that was covered in barley, sayin v'chifin b'chitin, or it was barley that was covered with wheat, ein mishalem el demei sayin bilvad. He only has to pay for the barley. Why? Alma amar leina tirsa desari kabili alai. I only accepted on myself to watch barley. I didn't accept on myself to watch wheat. Wheat is more expensive. Like Kabili Alai. I never accepted on myself to watch gold. It's much more expensive. So therefore, she's going to be exempt from that, as long as it wasn't done directly. Okay, we could leave it over here.
It says that it mentions a woman because it's a common expression. One who gives a dinner to a woman.
Oh, so it's just a common expression. Okay.